Hello and welcome back to Pure Michigan Sports. Christian Peck-Dimit, Alex Deimel. I think this is episode 34 now. And once again, this is your one-stop shop for everything Michigan sports related. And obviously, we had a great weekend in the state of Michigan sports-wise. There's so much going on. The Lions have a 3-game win streak and nabbed that all-important bye week in the number one spot. The Pistons are on a 4-game win streak. They're in play-in talks now and are just taking that next step that even we, who were high on the Pistons preseason, didn't expect them to. The Red Wings have the longest streak out of all of them, 5 in a row. Michigan basketball making a play at a streak as well with a big Big Ten win last night over UCLA. All kinds of stuff going on. Not to be left in the rear view is Michigan and Ohio State. I'm checking the score right now. The women's basketball team, that's a ranked matchup. Undefeated Ohio State is in Ann Arbor. In Michigan, the first quarter just ended. Michigan is up 26-18. So just a lot of different things, and almost all of it is great. So stick around. Pure Michigan Sports. Drop a follow everywhere we're at. Obviously, TikTok might not last a whole lot longer. What is it? 9 days, I think, from now the ban's supposed to take effect. If something isn't done, which it might be. But until then, follow on everywhere else. YouTube and I'm blanking on all of the other places. Anywhere, drop a review on Spotify, on Apple Music. If you are new, welcome. If you're old, welcome back. And let's get into it. I kind of want to start just real quickly with Michigan basketball, just to give a little score update for the women.
We broke Mick Cronin.
We just broke Mick Cronin. The Michigan basketball right now is absolutely cruising. First off, the women are leading the undefeated number 9 OSU, as I just said. Their first quarter shooting, 10 of 12 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3. And Silas Swords has just 1 field goal make. If you're leading on OSU with your best player taking a back seat, that's a pretty damn good job. So just to get that headline out of the way real quick, yeah, we broke Mick Cronin. If anyone saw, we'll talk about the game in a second.
Talk about it like a total crash out. And this is a guy that is very reputable coach. I mean, he's taken his team at least to 1 or 2 Final Fours the past few years. And there was one year where he went crazy, beat Michigan and Michigan State in the same tournament. I think that would have been like the Johnny Juzang days, or however you pronounce his name. And we just broke him. We just shattered his brain. He's going off in his presser like, I have the most energy on my team right now. Like, I can't get anyone to do anything right, like this and this and that. And you showed this to me just before we started recording. I'm like, it's a regular season loss. You're 11-4. You're not that bad. Like, this was like Kenny Dillingham level, just complete fallout. It was all because our boy hung 36 on you. It happens.
It's because Michigan came into what is now a Big Ten matchup. Still wild to think about going to the West Coast and playing USC and playing UCLA is Big Ten in conference play. But that's the world we live in. Beat USC a few days ago. Talked about that on our most recent show. And then now have Mick Cronin and UCLA and the Bruins last night. And really from the opening tip, just beat the tar out of this basketball team. And it was all Area 51. It was all Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf just dominating, particularly Golden, who had a career-high 36, as Alex mentioned. And he was doing a little bit of everything, dunking on people, hit a 3 in there, going to the left hand, soft touch, all kinds of everything. And despite some sort of bumps in the road that we'll talk about in a second, Michigan dominates UCLA. I've got some stats for you that might shed some light on this Cronin crash out. First off, this is Michigan's first win in Pauley Pavilion, obviously a historic place to play in UCLA when it comes to men's basketball. First win in Pauley Pavilion since 2002. 23 years since he won in UCLA. That's incredible. Second one for you. UCLA allows, going into last night's game, 59.2 points per game. We had 47 at half. We dropped 94 on them. The
And it's not
Michigan
like UCLA has played scrubs either.
No, this is a good. This was a ranked matchup. This Michigan was 24. Obviously, they still are for right now. UCLA was number 22 in the country and playing like it. They're still a team that has a very real, legitimate shot to win the Big Ten, and we dominated them. Granted, you're right, Alex. It is a regular season matchup. You can only take it with so much in terms of how much it means come postseason time. But this was a big time win, and I love that sort of middle of the second half, both Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden were in foul trouble at the same time. Essentially, your two best players were on the bench for a long stretch, 6 to 8 minutes or so. And it was Trey Donaldson who stepped up and hit a bunch of big shots, one from damn near at the UCLA logo, which obviously is a real small logo, so it's pretty much only center court. But it was a full 30 feet out, and he just stepped right into it, knocked it down. He had 26 of 10. This was, I think, a coming out party for a lot of people to Michigan basketball, because what if we've said it once, we've said it a million times. Everyone loves college football, as they should, but what that means is they don't really follow college basketball until after the football season starts winding down, and then you sort of look up from Michigan's win over Bama, and you're like, let's look for something else to watch. Oh, got a nationally televised ranked game, and we beat the tar out of UCLA on their home court.
Yeah, and I
Not a
mean,
bad night.
not at all. And I think the funny part about this is, for one thing, I think we could probably take this whole thing and make a segment of, if we've said it once, we've said it a million times, and just start listing things, because that seems to be like our MO now. I do have to bring up the negative. You still had 16 turnovers.
Oh man, I
It's great to
appreciate
get
you.
it, like, and it's a 20-point win. I'll take all day. But imagine how much better it is if you're not giving 20 points solely based off of turnovers.
And I appreciate you bringing it up, because it's one of those things where I think a lot of Michigan fans maybe don't watch the games in depth or box score read, which is fine. They're busy. You look at this game and you go, hell yeah, which you should. That's the headline, big win. But then you sort of look a little bit deeper. And there was a stretch during that second half, even before Area 51 got into foul trouble. Area 51 is our front court, by the way, as long as we're talking to the more
To the
casual fans.
mainstream.
Yeah. Um, where this game was back and forth. UCLA had the lead in the second half. Michigan was beating them by 20. I think highest or largest lead was 18 in the first half. And then UCLA came back and was leading on us, because it's not just the Michigan turnovers. Turning the basketball over at damn near a Big Ten leading rate is terrible. Alex says it all the time. Danny Wolf, our best player, turning the basketball over as much as he does is not good.
No.
But I think the worst aspect of the turnovers is that they're infectious. They're contagious. Turning the ball over 16 times is a lot, but when 4 or 5 of those turnovers come in like a 6 or 7 possession stretch,
Yeah.
it's just so bad. It's almost, and I think I texted my brother something along the lines of this. I'll see if I can read it word for word, but it's essentially, yeah. One dude sees another commit a stupid ass turnover and says, he's doing that without me. And then the third guy goes, ooh, look, that looks like fun. Let me join in. It's like FOMO, fear of missing out. It's like, I see one guy throw the ball into the stands. Let me underthink this pass and like toss it at my friend's feet right here. It it's not one turnover or two turnovers or the total number that freaks me out. It's the fact that they always compound on each other. It's the
Yeah.
fact that like you'll get 3 turnovers in 4 possessions from a very good basketball team.
And I wonder, I think you could probably answer this as our more resident basketball expert. Does that seem to come from more of a place of just like miscommunication on the floor? Like, at what level does that come back to bad play programming on Dusty May's part, or I wonder, at what point do we figure out who the turnovers are to blame specifically?
Yeah, I think that's almost as big a part of the problem as your question sort of points to the fact that like it's our best players. It's Danny Wolf, it's Vlad Golden, it's Trey Donaldson, who has been doing a much better job taking care of the ball as of late. Shout out to Trey. It's the fact that we had 16 turns and and Danny Wolf was 7 of them. You've got a dude who's going to be making a play at being an All-American this year. I mean, he's playing that
Yes.
well.
I
And when
mean,
you
when was the last time
average,
you saw a Michigan kid hang 36 points in a conference game away?
yeah, you hung 94 points on what might be, maybe not anymore, the best defense in the Big Ten. They're a top 3 defense in the Big Ten, and we did that to them. But then you've got Danny Wolf hucking the ball in the stands, and it feels like, to be honest with you, my gut says it's a coaching thing because almost always when you have turnovers at this rate, it comes from a lack of attention to detail and a lack of readiness for gameplay. But that would point to Dusty May, who by all rights is game planning great. He's got this team 4-0 in Big Ten play in a very tough conference. They're 12-3, and they're probably going to be top 20 by next week's poll. So I don't know how much of it is on Dusty May, but I would say the types of turnovers that you're getting, there's a certain point where I don't want to, but I start to look back and say, this is coaching. This needs to be something that he instills in these young kids that are all obviously transfer portal kids. Almost all of them are new to this team this year. They got to gel a little bit better, and they got to gel a little bit quicker. But at the same time, I was already at halftime to come on this show today and say, this team is improving over the last few weeks. They're getting much better, not turning the ball
Yeah,
over, blah, blah, blah. And then they did. So it's definitely,
kept you
still a
honest.
very good team. Yeah, you got to be honest. They did. They turned the basketball over. Also, quick side note before we finish up on Michigan basketball. Roddy Gale did not play yesterday. Obviously, college ball is way less strict in terms of what they are required to report with injuries. We were talking about that last week with Silas Swords and people thinking she was going to be out a long time, and then her coming
She's
back
back.
right away and dropping 30. So Gale was questionable coming into last night's game and then ended up not playing. And basically, that's the only actual information they have. There's some rumors, some side reports of like, oh, he had a wrist injury coming into the season. Maybe it's that flaring up again. But really, we don't know. It's just he was injured, questionable, didn't play. So just thought that was worth mentioning before we get out of there. But that's not the only team on a winning streak right now. There's a number of other Detroit teams. Where do you want to maybe the game that you were at last night?
Yeah, I mean, great game against it is a big 2 points. Wings
Red
versus
Wings game, by the
Senators.
way. Yeah.
They're in our division. It was a much needed win. Even with the winning streak we've been on, puts us, believe it or not, within 2 of the wild card race, and that's how tight this Eastern Conference is right now, and just how competitive the bottom of the pack in that conference is just in general. Because if you look at it, I'm pulling it up here so I don't say anything wrong. We have 40 points right now. Columbus is in, who we have beaten on this winning streak, is in that second wild card slot with 42, and there are still 3 teams in between us. That's what's insane. And I mean, we were, I think, second to last in the conference a week or 2 ago, minimum. And so it's been a great role. It really comes down to I didn't know if the coaching shift was the answer to all of the problems. So far, it has been. It's a lot less dump and chase. It's a lot more of an offensive pressure focus. I mean, you even have DeBrincat going side by side with Sider on a power play last night. But you knew, and my buddy who I was with, he said it from the beginning. Kane was, I think, I think he was the second shift onto the ice in overtime, and he looked at me and he's like, I bet he stays on the whole time because the man just loves overtime goals. That's what he
Mm.
lives for. And also, at least from the fan, like from my view, so many missed calls. I mean, I think it was Edvinson took a no, sorry, Johansson took a stick to the nose. Wasn't a call. There were multiple trips that weren't called. I loved seeing Brady Tkachuk go to the box not once but twice. That stupid alien. Um, I'm saying he looks like an alien, not that
Yeah,
he is
yeah.
one. Um, but it was a great game to be at. I know Lions started, then all of a sudden Talbot's in the second period. Everyone's like, "What the hell?" I guess he went out with an upper body. Um, I am going to say this, and it was said last night. I never want anyone to get injured. You never hope anybody gets hurt. But it's been a bit nice not having to worry about Jeff Petrie getting dusted by on defense and allowing, next thing you know, a breakaway goal. I I hope he comes back healthy, and he there were games where he was playing pretty well. I know he had the 2-goal game against Toronto at home, which was great, and at that point, for whatever reason, it was just defense was clicking on all cylinders. But I do think this, I mean, he's shifting up the lines a little bit. McClellan is. He had rookie Marco Casper on a line with Raymond and Larkin for a bit last night. That didn't make a ton of sense, but it seemed to work. Um, it was overall an even game, but that's where it was the even games that were very close that the Wings were seemingly losing. And that was the biggest issue is they could not close when they needed to, or they were closing by so much. There was just no even keel to it. So I think this guy is aggressive. I think he wants his players to play aggressive. He's
Mm.
not sit back and watch. I think Lalonde was. You could just kind of tell there wasn't a ton of energy in the play style or just in any of the shifts that you saw under Lalonde this year. And it's working out so far so good. Um, I still think I'm in the mindset of just 1-0, 1-0, 1-0.
Mm.
Each game you're going in with a clean slate. You got to find a way to win it. You got 3 fairly easy games coming up. You got Blackhawks, Kraken, and Sharks all at home. Um, Blackhawks we should beat easily. Kraken and Sharks. I mean, the Sharks took one from us when we went out there. So who knows? And then after that, you've got 3 of the best teams in the league all on the road. You go to Florida against the Panthers. You go to Tampa against the Lightning. Then you're in Dallas against the Stars. 3 of the best teams in the entire NHL. So I think those will be good tests to see what McClellan can do against those guys and if this team is playoff ready, which I'd like to hope that they are. They're still obviously in the mix. But at the same time, we've got about 4-5 months left, or I guess January, last regular season game would be April. So 3 or 4 months left of regular season hockey. So much can change, so much can happen. But I think if things stay the way they are right now, I think we're looking at a playoff team.
How do you feel, if at all, that McClellan has helped this team defensively? Because it felt like that, like obviously the offense was an issue. This was not a very good team in general, but it felt like every week you were on here harping about the poor defensive play. And on this 5-game win streak, 4 of those 5 games holding the opponent to 2 goals.
It seems, and I don't know, I don't want to make such a blanket statement because I would have to go back and look at the stats just to see, but it seems like it's a lot less dumb penalties. One, I mean, I think we were in the penalty box once last night. It seemed like, especially with our penalty kill rate, which was abysmal, it seems like we have less penalties. And at the exact same time, it seems like the pressure is just upped. We're more attacking on offense than we are sitting back and waiting for offense to come to us. Um, like I said earlier, it's just a lot less dump and chase. It's more get after the puck, a little bit more speed, a little bit more energy. And it as simple and stupid as it sounds, it is the play fucking hockey method, as
Mm.
was the quote that was leaked out of the locker room, supposedly, and has been going viral throughout Red Wings Twitter. Um, and at the same time, I mean, he had a great win against Winnipeg, but other than that, he hasn't had too many really tough matchups yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know it would have been a day or two after Christmas he was fired, and we lost to the Leafs in his first game, and then since then, he just started winning. And I mean, the Caps are good, Penguins are meh, and Same with Jackets and Sens. But I think that, like I said, that road trip that starts January 16th when you go Florida, Dallas, that'll be a good test, and it'll be a good test to see where this team is at, whether Stevie needs to make a move going into the deadline, which is coming up in February. So I obviously it's tough to complain where things are right now, but again, it's a whirlwind. You never really know.
As long as we're talking about teams that it's tough to complain about, let's slide over to our third of 4 local teams that are on winning streaks right now. Already talked about the Wings and UMich basketball. The women, by the way, just reached halftime. They're up 13 on undefeated Ohio State right now in women's ball. Olivia Olson, leading scorer with 14 points. Silas Swords gets a lot of the headlines, as she should. Olivia Olson is the 1B to her 1A as a freshman scorer. She's 6 of 7 from the field, and this team is shooting 69, a very nice percent in the first half, which is obviously ridiculous in basketball.
Yeah.
So that's great. And I think it's time we slide over to the Lions, making it 20 plus minutes into the show without talking about the
That's a
team that took
first.
almost our entire focus of last episodes. If you want to watch that, slide back over there. But the Pistons have now won 3 in a row, and the Lions have now won 3 in a row, and none were bigger than that Sunday night game against the Vikings. Beat them, secured the number 1 seed, secured the North, rattled Sam Darnold, did a whole lot of good things, shut down Justin Jefferson. And while that was a massive win, it also gives you the bye, which is hugely important for this injured team. It also gives you the opportunity to look down at your potential matchups, where we were talking pre-show about you essentially can just sort of see where it goes and basically watch all. I know some coaches and players are different about these things in terms of will we watch all of these games or watch them later as cut up film and analyze them that way. But we've got Rams Vikings, Bucks Commanders, and Eagles Packers as the 3 other matchups. And obviously the NFL still reseeds. So hosting at Ford Field, will the Lions play the lowest remaining seed? First off, let's take a prediction. Alex, who do you think that's actually going to be?
I do have. I've been thinking about this since we won the game and looking at these matchups, and then looking at history, looking at what I've seen out of teams this year. Actually, a lot of thought into this one. Even looking at the spreads on what these games are. The Detroit Lions will be hosting the Washington Commanders come divisional week. I think the Rams Vikings, that doesn't necessarily impact it. I think the Eagles do their job with the Packers, especially if Hurts is out of concussion protocol. But quite frankly, I'd even feel confident in this team without him. I mean, you have Saquon. It seems like Kenny can hold down the fort somewhat, not perfectly, but
And
they've
real
got
quick,
the talent.
Christian Watson also tore his ACL. That's new news, I believe, this morning that came out. It might have been
Yes.
yesterday
Yep.
afternoon.
And looking at, and I love Baker Mayfield. I even loved him when he tore us up week 2, which was just a very off game for Jared Goff, as we remember. But as talented as he is, as good as I think he's been, as much as I think he's been undervalued since he's been in the league until getting to Tampa. I think he's shifted around so much, and he does have the ability to be a dynamic playmaker. I do think this Washington team comes in and takes a very close, but I think they take a dominant win in between the lines in that game. And it goes back to a few things. One, even with Dallas and New York, I'm forgetting them because they've been unfortunately close to irrelevant this year. The Bucks came out of probably the easiest division in football this year. It was a pathetic division, top to bottom.
The South divisions are struggling this year.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh,
holy
it's
hell.
brutal. It's brutal. And then also on top of that, I mean, this is a Washington team who was able to beat the number 2 seed in Philadelphia as a rookie quarterback who's got a lot of talent, a lot of speed, a lot of a high football IQ. But there's not a ton of all-stars on that team as you think. I mean, you think about Mike Evans for Tampa. You got or Godwin's still done, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still out.
But I mean, you have the two running backs in the backfield for Tampa. You have all of that talent, and I still think with that the Bucks have had kind of a this type of year, and Washington has just been so incredibly consistent up and down. Defensively, I don't know too much, but I do think that's where the matchup is going to lie: is Washington's defense. Can they hold Tampa's offense? Because I think the Washington offense could tear this Tampa defense apart.
Well, that's really the big headline for this Washington team. Obviously, well, that's not true. Jaden Daniels takes a lot of the headlines. He should. The biggest thing for this Washington team was last year their offensive line was one of the worst in the league. Last year their defense was abysmal. And frankly, heading into this season, not a lot of that was scripted to make any huge changes, but they have played phenomenal. Both their defense and their offensive line have taken massive steps forward. Now, does that mean that they are playoff caliber? Obviously, but are they, contending Super Bowl wise? No, they're not that good, but they've taken really solid steps forward. And I think that actually, as long as we're going the prediction route, I actually agree with you. My pick was going to be the Commanders to have to play us. However, there is a sinking feeling in the back of my mind that Dan Campbell is right, that we are going to have to play the Vikings again. And I think just because of the almost revenge factor, that like wanting to get your get back, I think the Vikings, would have a very real shot in that game. Uh, and frankly, a potential Vikings divisional round matchup does worry me a little bit.
Also, this, I mean, I do agree. I think obviously if the Commanders or Packers win that game, we wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That being said, Minnesota only being favored by one seems
Mm.
insane to me. Absolutely insane. I know the Rams beat this team earlier in the year. I get that. And I know they were able to shut down. It was kind of the same thing that just happened with us. They were able to shut down Sam Darnold, shut down the Vikings offense at that time. After that game, I think the Vikings could hang like 40 plus on this Rams defense, a defense that is not exactly all that to be desired. Um, I don't understand that line at all. Obviously, Vegas knows something I don't because that makes no sense. But I do think it's those other two matchups, specifically that Washington matchup, that I do think we could see an upset out of. And I even think this is a weird Packers team that could pull something in Philly. Philly seems to be a little bit injury heavy at times, even with all of the talent. This is a Packers team that seems to pull out some weird wins. Obviously, a loss to the Bears this past week doesn't exactly bode well. But I do think this is like this is clearly an anything can happen, and I think the Lions
Yeah.
obviously have to be prepared for all possibilities.
That is fair. Real quick, you mentioned the Rams defense. Before they rested their starters in the final week of the season against the Seahawks, their previous 3 games, they held their opponents to the Cardinals 9 points, the Jets 9 points, and the Niners 6 points. 9, 9, and 6. This is a defense that can be and is playing right now playoff caliber football.
But let's think about this for a second here, though, because I mean, we watched this, and again, the 49ers torched our third string defense. I'll give them that. They weren't exactly terrible against us, but this is not a exactly sought after Cardinals offense. It's definitely not a sought after Rams offense.
No.
And the Seahawks, who had been by at least their
No,
standards of this past decade.
Seahawks, Rams rested their starters.
Oh, that's right. But I mean, I still even think this is a team that gave up 37 to the Eagles. They gave up, let's see, even the Vikings.
What, 42 to
that
the
was a
Rams?
top
Or
game.
42 to the Bills? Or
42 to the
40-something to the
Bills,
Bills.
23 to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
24 to the Bears. Like, not a ton to be desired defensively here in comparison to playoff teams. So that's where, or at least definitely not desirable in terms of having a full strength Lions defense. I think we knock it out of the park with them any day. But I honestly wonder. And another thing we haven't thought about, obviously, prayers out to everybody if you're in the LA area with the wildfires out there. I do wonder if they move this game.
It is something that's been thrown around. There were some reports this morning that it might be. How does that affect scheduling? How does that affect? It may even affect where it is physically played in terms of not even delaying the game, but moving it, playing it somewhere else. It's not like the Rams have, you know, any fans to fill those stands anyways, but that could certainly have an effect.
Yeah, and we will. I don't know. We will see. I guess if I was a betting man, I'd be hammering the Vikings all day, any day on that one. That line just
Fair
seems
enough.
a little too far fetched for me. Um,
Real quick before we get through the Lions, there are some very key injury updates, mostly defensively, but a massive one offensively. Reports last night into this morning that David Montgomery is expected to be back, or at least to be available for the Lions divisional round matchup, whoever that may be against. That's massive. We saw what Gibby did to the Vikings. We know he is that dude. He's playing really well, but this offense hums at its best when you've got that pairing of the Sonic and Knuckles. And I know that's like their go to is like they want to be called Sonic and Knuckles, but in general, we've seen the rise of that powering hammerback paired with a sort of scat back that no longer is getting the Theo Riddick type touches as we were talking some long ago Lions history. But now there are these two back pairings where you're willing to give that speed option a ton of looks, essentially split carries. And obviously that's what the Lions do with Monty and Gibbs. Having him back could be huge.
Oh, absolutely. And I do think it showed how much getting this team back to full strength matters, even in this Vikings game. I mean, Alex Anzalone balled out even with that massive scar on his forearm. I do love the quote, everybody wants to be a dog until you got to do some dog shit. That was legendary. And then he came out and had an incredible game.
Dude,
And I
as
mean,
long as
even
we're
guys
talking
like
quotes.
exactly. And I mean, even guys like Amik Robertson, sorry, um, locking up argue. I don't even think it's an argument. He locked up the best receiver in football.
Mm.
And that does give, I think, the entire fan base, the coaching staff. I mean, it gave Aaron Glenn so much confidence that he was sitting on the fucking bench during the game, just hand up like this, just chilling.
Fuck it.
Like, it's one of those where getting those one or two pieces back could be huge. It's easy to try to dream and imagine what it could be like if Hutch can make a return by the Super Bowl. I don't love the fact that he's barely walking. He's walking, but like
Yeah.
you haven't seen any videos of him working out. And hypothetically, the Super Bowl would be in about a month.
Mm-hmm.
Scares me a little bit, but defensive players in the NFL, you got to have the dog mindset. You got to
Yeah.
have, put your body on the line. So we very well could see some of these guys coming back. But even getting one or two key pieces against a division rival to clinch the 1 seed was big, and it was much needed.
It absolutely was. Carlton Davis, by the way, obviously another key injury at corner, suffered that broken jaw. He's essentially got like that sort of Hutch timetable, could be back by the Super Bowl, maybe NFC Championship game as a very outside shot. A couple of other ones that I'm got up here. Ennis Rankstraw essentially is sort of screwed. He's probably done so. Yeah, Derek Barnes, same sort of thing. Hopefully, could be back for the Super Bowl. So that's sort of it, and that's the problem. Is we get Monty back, but getting Anzalone back and getting Khalif Raymond was sort of the end of the list as far as injury updates, and that was the big thing. Getting Anzalone is massive, obviously, but you felt like anytime you were in a comment section of anywhere, Lions fans, hey man, wait till the bye, we'll get XX and X back. No, we won't. No one else is getting healthy, man. I don't know what you're waiting for. Anzalone is big, like we said, but that's sort of the end of the list. You can dream and hope that the Super Bowl may bring an outside shot for a couple more guys, but until
we got to
then,
get there first.
we got to get there first.
We absolutely have to get there first, and this is not an easy. I mean, there's a reason the playoff race for this conference was so tight down the stretch. I mean,
Very
the
top heavy
AFC,
for sure.
there was a very clear divide between who's up here and who's down here. The NFC, at least that middle of the pack, was still dangerous. I mean, the three teams from our own division who have seen us twice probably know how we play better than anyone else and are potential threats to a Super Bowl run. So it's one of those where you can dream about having those guys back, but at some point you have to say like we got to play with the team on the field. And
True.
it's obviously I don't think luckily I don't think I've ever seen a coaching staff come out and say like, oh, our team is injured, like, oh, we're just gonna lose. And I
We're
mean, but I
fucked.
think this coaching staff for sure has made it known like anyone that is counting us out because of injuries sucks, and we're gonna do our thing. We're gonna continue to do our thing. It's next man up football, and that's exactly how it should be.
Yeah, there's a reason that like coach speak exists. Like anytime there's an injury, you hear any coach at any level say next man up. It's because you're right. Yeah, you can't just go into a locker room or go into a press conference and say he's a massive loss. We're probably screwed. You just can't do that. But last and certainly not least, right now are the Detroit Pistons on this list. We've talked now the Lions, the Wings, UMich basketball, and women's basketball. I'll get you a score update in a second here. All of these teams are cruising, in the Pistons not least among them.
Still
Uh,
cruising. 18-10 over the Nets. 6:04 left in the first.
Hell yeah. That game, yeah, like Alex said, just tipped off not too long ago. But let's go back. Let's go back, whatever it is, 3 months, 2 months. We looked at this team preseason and said, you have the pieces to, at the outside, maybe sneak into a play-in spot. That's big time. And at the time, we were saying hammer the wins over. We were saying maybe you get to 30.
Which was
The
what
fa-
again?
the wins over was what, 26 and a half, something like that?
Yeah, we're at what, 18 right now?
The fact that
If
we
we
said
find a way to lose or to not win another 9 games, I
would be
honestly might be
crazy.
more impressed than I am mad.
The fact that we said on this podcast, hammer the wins over, we're going to get to 30, we might have a shot at a play-in. And not only was it a hot take then, but also it's a freezing cold, obvious take now. It's crazy.
Yeah. What's still crazy to me, and I'm looking at it right now. Minnesota comes to town, what was it? The 4th, so this past Saturday.
Yeah, yeah.
And Anthony Edwards has his career high, and we still won.
Because Cade dropped a 40 ball.
Because K dropped a 40 ball, because Tobias was cleaning up the glass. I
This is
don't.
this is a Pistons
He's
team.
like one of the best players in basketball right
Cade?
now. Anthony Edwards.
Oh.
He put up a 50 burger. We still won.
This is a Pistons team that is genuinely fun to watch. They have Cade Cunningham playing at an all NBA level. They have a bunch of other young, fun pieces. Asar is playing great. They have that 3-point deadly shooter, whether it's Tim Hardaway Jr. or Malik Beasley. One of them is hot on any given night. And the way that they move the basketball and the way that they play with that, like, classic, almost ironic Pistons, like Detroit blue collar physicality and energy.
Does it give any like feeling of Bad Boys, or we're probably nowhere close to comparisons? But you talk
I
about
mean,
like
that was a team playing for NBA championships, so I
that's
won't make
true.
that comparison yet. But it does have a similar vibe of like, we're a little undersized, we're super physical, we're on the younger side. We've got a lot of like kids who just want to play ball. It paired with some of the older vets, and there's not a lot of in between. And it's almost like a father son thing when you see these videos. I mean, like Malik Beasley, who's very quickly becoming one of my favorite Pistons, period, outside of Cade Cunningham, even though he's only been with us for a couple months, saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to go just like chill at Jaden Ivey's house. Like he's been down after his injury. So I'm just going to like go over there and like play games with him and stuff. Like it's that like camaraderie. It's a team that's together. So in that way, you get a little bit of the Bad Boys vibe, but just in general, it's a team that's actually exciting, fun to watch, and making actual noise in the East. Like right now, if the let me pull it up. We've won 7 of the last 8 games, 4 in a row. beating Brooklyn right now, and then have Golden State and Toronto after that, who are both beatable teams, you very well could extend this winning streak to 7 games before you head to New York for the Knicks, who's obviously are a very tough matchup. But right now in the East, if the playoffs or if the season were to end today, we'd be the 9th seed. That's pretty damn incredible. And we are a half game out right now from being tied for the 6th spot. The 6th spot.
And I'm pretty sure
The
we beat the
Detroit
Heat, didn't we?
Pistons. Yeah. The Detroit Pistons, the team that won 14 games literally 1 year ago, the team who its 4 previous seasons combined at this point in the year had won 18 games total, actually has a shot to play postseason basketball.
Are you?
That's
Is it crazy to still call for Al Gore's to sell the team?
Tom
Is it
Gores.
crazy?
Yeah, of course it's crazy.
Like, okay, let me throw this hypothetical out because I know we talked about this. Like, this is kind of how we were with the Iser plan a little bit, where it was kind of like as things got shaky, you were like, "Are we still trusting this? Like, what's going on?"
Yeah.
If this team doesn't stay, because I mean that is a majority, including the play-in, a majority of teams in the conference make the playoff. If they find a way to slide back out, or I guess not even, I don't even want to ask that. What has to happen for you to get back on that sell the team wagon if you were ever on it?
I don't think I was ever fully on the sell the team wagon. I was just in like something in the front office needs to change. And obviously it did this offseason, new GM, new coach. But I get what you're going for. And to be honest with you, I think at this point, it would be very, unless there's like a catastrophic, like Cade's leg falls off or he gets like Gordon Haywarded or something. Like one of our key
You
pieces,
can't just say that shit out loud.
God forbid, any of our key pieces get like a catastrophic injury or something horrible like that happens. Unless that happens, I think it's very difficult for me to view this as a losing season. I mean, as you remember when we were doing our preseason, like obviously a long time ago, we had this whole show set up where it was just looking at preseason for the Wings and for the Pistons and all this stuff. And we were super high on the Pistons, but at the same time, we were like, it's still the relative scale. It's Detroit sports. We're very used to the relative scale of like how to cheer for teams that are rebuilding. A major win for this team was hitting 30 wins on the season.
Yeah.
We can be terrible the rest of the year and still hit 29, 30 wins. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I think objectively, if we lose 10 games in a row at any point in the season, I'll be pissed, obviously. But I think if we still find our way to around 30 wins, I think it's hard to look at this season as a loss. That would be more than double what we had last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I that's where I'm questioning, like, if things just slide all the way
Yeah.
back down to where we've looked, it like
Which is
does it
very
still look the
possible.
same?
It's still Detroit sports, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Because that's the beauty is you never really know. Um, and I think it'll be interesting to see where we go with it because we haven't seen a dynamic or even a playoff caliber Pistons team in so long that it seems the NBA has done such a shift in its structure with the playoffs, just in structure in general with like these cup things and this and this and that. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on with that. And I mean, as much as we're following all of these teams, I just do want to ask if there is one team. I know we gave our predictions for who we think the Lions are going to play.
Yeah.
This isn't exact. I think any way you look at it, this is an NFC where every team is is competition. I mean, I think the Bill, like if you're going to look at it, if you're a Bills fan right now, you're happy because I think you're easily crush the Broncos. I think the Chiefs are kind of looking at their conference. If you're a Chiefs fan, like not a ton outside of the Ravens and the Bills, like competition in that conference. If there's one team, I guess going back to the Lions for a minute, in the playoffs right now in the NFC that you could just handpick the Lions play that first round, who are you picking?
You're saying like an ideal wanting the Lions.
Like ideally, who do we play?
Not for like a get momentum, but for like the easiest win,
Yeah,
who I think
easiest
would be
win.
most likely to win. I think the Packers right now, I think they're just coming off of a Chicago. Obviously, they'd be coming off of a big upset if that were to happen. But coming off of a loss to Chicago, Jordan Love's not playing great right now. Their play calling's really suffering as of late. I think the Chicago loss did a lot for you morale wise, and then you lose your best outside option offensively. I think it's a team that we'd feel good about hosting and playing again. Um, that being said, you're right. I mean, I think the AFC has better teams than the NFC in that it's very top heavy because the Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills are just all so good. But I think the NFC is more, competitive top to bottom, if that makes sense. And so in that way, I don't think that there's really one team that I would love to play. I think the Rams uh, are certainly there's a ton that has to happen for us to play the Rams in the first round or in the divisional round. But I think the Rams have to be near that list or near the top of that list. Is there someone for you?
Rams. It's not
Yeah.
even close. It's actually no. Let me rephrase. It is close. Close second there. I'd love to get, and it's because I think we are a much different team, and I think we had an off game against this team.
Mm,
I think a getting revenge against the Bucks in the first round would be.
mm.
I mean, I don't
I don't think
actually. No,
that's
it's not
even technically
possible.
possible.
No, it's not. Never mind. If that were to be possible, if we meet them in the
NFC
conference
Championship game.
championship, I
NFC
think that
Championship.
that'd be a great kind of. It's one of those screw you revenge games going into the Super Bowl.
Exercise
If
your
we get it
demons.
there, if we
Yeah.
get there, um, those are two opponents that I'm like, I can feel pretty confident in those games. But it's playoff football. You never really know. This
Hmm.
is a very jam packed conference with talent. Of course, the Lions are at the top of the league in a year where it seems like so many other teams could be as well.
Hmm.
Obviously, you can play you know the past game of like, oh, this shouldn't have happened or if that happened and if
Counterfactual.
that. Um, but either way, I think it's that was it's so funny because you saw so many people commenting like, oh, like why are fans treating this like it was the Super Bowl, this and this and that. This was the biggest regular season matchup with at least in terms of what's on the line, who you're facing off against that I can remember.
It's actually factually the biggest matchup in terms of win total the two teams combined.
And the fact that you're going against a conference opponent,
Divisional opponent.
a divisional opponent for the division for the 1 seed. I mean, there was so much on the line that
Mm.
I was laughing out loud reading people being like, "Why does this matter so much? Like they're both going to the playoffs." That's just someone who clearly isn't paying attention to football.
Yeah. And
And
that's fine.
that's again why that win was so big. And I feel like we probably didn't talk about it enough because it was it was not an easy first half. The defense kind of had to carry
Mm.
the team on their back, and then things opened up in the second. Um, but I mean, when you can lock down a team like that, both quarters, you can rattle a guy that people are saying is having this up and coming year, and he was. He's Sam
Mm.
Darnold has been brilliant. You can
Still
say that he's
is.
got the best tools around him, but you can have the best tools around you. It's still up to you to deliver as a QB.
Hmm.
So
No, you're right.
it
There was
just
a
I think
long
it
time where this game was very much in flux.
yes, absolutely. And I think it was a game where neither offense, it definitely to start, played nearly as well as they wanted to. It was kind of like trading back and forth who's going to, make a worse mistake or decision.
Yeah,
And
true.
then things eventually got better on the Lions side. It clearly didn't on the Vikings, but this is not still not a team to discount. This is still this is
Mm.
a top 5 team in the NFL and a team that we very likely could be playing again. So that's where I hate seeing all the comments like why are fans treating this so big? It's
Mm.
because this was the biggest regular season matchup of all time.
For
Plain
sure.
and simple.
For sure it was. 1 point game until the final 3 minutes of the third quarter. Before we get out of here, obviously talked a ton of different winning Detroit and Michigan sports. If you like that and if you want more, please hit that subscribe button. The easiest and the simplest way to help us grow the channel, give you more content like this. Hit the subscribe button down low, hit the like, leave a comment. even if you disagree with us. We've had plenty of those type of comments. We were talking about it pre-show.
Keep 'em coming.
Disagree with us down low. Drop a review if you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcast or whatever. You don't even have to write anything. Just leave the 5 stars. Get on out of there. Also, if you're looking or watching this on some sort of social media, or if you saw it on there, Instagram, YouTube, like we said, TikTok, maybe for not much longer, and of course on Substack, all pure Michigan sports. Before we get out of here, a quick pick of the week. I'm going to cheat and say Michigan women's basketball money line because you can get good odds now because it's a very close game. It's 2 points right now with 3 minutes left in the third, though Michigan is still in the lead. Obviously, a great Ohio State team, as much as that, I don't enjoy saying that. They're very good this year and are basically top of the Big Ten, which is a very competitive conference on the women's side. But I'll take that as my Michigan pick, and then my non-Michigan pick. I've got Chargers minus 2.5 in Houston against the Texans. I think that offensive line for Houston is beat the hell up. If it was ever good in the first place, I think you've got a C.J. Stroud that's not playing good football, A, and B, is not very confident in himself or his weapons, who, of course, have gone through a number of injuries this year. I like the Chargers to beat up on the Texans. I think 2.5 or minus 2.5 cashes easily.
I'm gonna go weird here. And I actually don't even know if this is something you can bet on, but if the odds line up, actually no, that wouldn't work. I don't know what I'm thinking. I was thinking of doing, because Michigan State plays Washington in basketball on Thursday, then Michigan plays Washington on Sunday. I was thinking parlay MSU and Michigan, but I don't think you'd get the odds out in time for that to happen.
But if you did,
that would be the pick. Since that's not probably probable to happen, I'm actually going to go, I believe it would be tomorrow. I don't think there's odds on it yet, but really whatever. I think this is a Michigan State team that's going to roll Washington easily. I think this is a decent Washington team, so I can see the spread being closer, but it's Michigan State at home. First time I think these two teams have probably played in a very long time. So at least this season would be, because I don't really think they've played
we
a
haven't
ton
played them yet this year.
In the past years. So we shall see. And then non-Michigan pick, staying in the NFL as you did. I do like over 43.5 Ravens Steelers, as those are normally two defensive heavy teams. I think this is a game where both offenses come to shine, and the spread is 9.5 already for Baltimore. So you've got to imagine if they're putting up that many points, the Steelers probably won't get shut out, because this isn't like the best Ravens defense of all time.
No,
so I do love the 43.5.
Sure.
The 43.5 over there. I think that kind of wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to give another Michigan OSU score update, but we probably shouldn't have been doing them at all. This is going to come out on what would be Thursday morning, and it's Wednesday night right now, so you can check the final score yourself. Hopefully Michigan won, and hopefully you had a great time listening to us. We had a great time talking to you. Drop that follow, subscribe. Until next time, Pure Michigan Sports.